you've touched on two things that I think have a common theme. One, Rick, is the camaraderie from going to those meetings where you've got people with different backgrounds but focused on a common goal.
Yes.
And then from the perspective of you as physicians seeing your wound care patients every week, that fostered a beautiful relationship that you had with your patients and them with you. And at the end of the day, I really think that it is that camaraderie and that relationship that are missing between the administrators and the physicians.
You know, Janet, you have beautifully laid a foundation here for a couple of thoughts that I've been having during this conversation. And that is physicians are starting to find their voice, and it's becoming much more amplified in that there is a strong desire to get back to the sanctity of the patient-physician relationship. And how do I create that? How do I build that in a business model? And I do think that's really the trigger for why we're starting to see more direct primary care practices that are popping up. And we're now starting, I know Randy and I have talked to a few physicians that are even going into specialty areas that are direct care. So they're cutting out all of this middle stuff and getting back to this one-on-one. And I think what you've talked about is really it's spawning that. There's this thirst, this hunger to get back to that, so that there is pride in the work that they do. They're reinstilling that within that relationship. And, you know, another thought that I had too during this conversation, we've talked about, the challenge that physicians are having, but I think there are administrators, and especially those that are in the middle management area, that have to walk a line. They have to walk a line between it is a business and we want to be profitable so that we can provide the mission that we're here for, but I am empathic and I am respectful and I do want to work collegially with my physicians. How do I walk that line? How do I, where's my playbook? And, that's one of the things I really enjoy about the work that you have done. You've laid out a lovely, I'm just going to call it the playbook for leadership and how you do walk that line. And make no mistake, it's not an easy one to walk, but I'd like for you to talk a little bit about that. If you would, please. I'm just going to go right here and tell you, I'm so proud to have this in my library. I wish I had it sooner in my career. And if y'all haven't seen it, it's Gracious Leadership by Janet Smith Meeks. She took all of these years of experience and these lessons that she's sharing with us today and put it in a lovely recipe book on how to build those relationships. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute now that I've kind of teed you up. I'd love for you to talk about it a little bit.
It's brilliant.
And I just want to know, Janet, if can a gracious leader, are they born that way, or is it something that is,
great question.
With a lot of, inherent type of personality traits, or is it something that even that one of those people that you referred to earlier who thought docs were just a bunch of greedy SOBs, can somebody like that be molded into a gracious leader? I'm
going to jump in here because I read the book, and I'm going to say that Janet is probably going to say that no, gracious leaders are not born, but they have good parents.
To start.
Well said, Randy. Des, the administrator I mentioned earlier, is being an example of how not to lead, particularly in his perspective regarding doctors, thinking of them as greedy bastards. That person's not mentioned in my book. I should just tell you that. Can somebody learn this? I think that the answer is possibly yes, but you've got to have a very strong will to change. If somebody's a bully, or if they don't understand or are not willing to apply the time and the discipline to learn what I refer to as the 13 key ingredients of gracious leadership until they become second nature, then no. So I think maybe some of those convictions or attributes may be a part of who we are, part of our DNA. And to Randy's point, I mean, in my case, my parents, shaped and molded me from many perspectives, because I grew up in Mississippi as the daughter of a country lawyer who in 1964 was the person who, as the attorney for the school board, told the school board when the federal mandate was issued that the schools were to be integrated. He is the person who said, we have to do this. And we don't have time to go into any of the detail, but long story short, he became a target of the KKK, and they threatened his life and my mother, my brother, my lives, because my dad, and this is one of the lessons in gracious leadership, that you're courageous to do the right thing even when it's not popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as administrators, we find ourselves in that situation a lot, that if I have to go to a physician and tell that individual what I can't do, then that takes some courage to do that. As I said earlier, I'm always going to say why I can't do it, but I'd much rather you can't be conflict averse and be a successful administrator. You cannot fall prey to giving doctors this proverbial slow no and garner their respect. But the book, Rhonda, I was looking through the key ingredients of gracious leadership this morning, just thinking about our conversation, and so many of the chapters are relevant to trying to foster optimal relationships between administrators and doctors. Gracious leaders are respectful. We talked about that. They value relationships. They listen with purpose and respond with care. So there you go with the follow through. They see problems as opportunities. Randy, we talked about that you can't fix what's broken unless you know about it. So go ask. And I have yet, as I would ask doctors, tell me what's broken, I bet 75% of the time they said, nope, we're good. We're good. But when I first went there, it was like going to a fire hydrant for a sip of water. In the case of St. Anne's, it's like, what do you need, surgeons? What one thing can we change to make your experience better here as you work here? And what can we change to make your patient's experience better? And I just projectile list of simple things. They wanted basic equipment in the OR. They wanted staff trained so they could take great care of their patients. And then you have to have courage, because as an administrator, sometimes you got people on your bus that aren't going where you're going. And if they don't get with the program and understand that we are here to serve physicians and patients, we're here to serve. Physicians are customers and our partners. And if you don't get that, my philosophy is, you get a couple strikes, but then you're out. And
yes,
so
absolutely.
Rhonda, thanks for the shout out about gracious leadership. I wrote this book. I wish I had had something like this when I was a young aspiring leader. I just wanted to keep it simple and help people understand there's some basic things they can do. And be a respectful leader who also can guide your team to achieve excellence.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about the book, is you did keep it it's so beautifully written, and it's very simple, and I find it's a resource, and I think it should be in everyone's library that goes into in any field. Honestly, we're talking about leadership in any field, but for our purpose, particularly in healthcare, I think for now, for any nurse that I talk with, or anybody that's going into their first positions, this is a gift. This is something I'll be handing to them that, yep, keep this one close by. This one will help you. Thank you so much for joining us for the discussion today. If you would like to learn more about our guest, head on over to our Patreon page, where you can access exclusive content, including the full segment of our show. Never want to miss an Inside the Doctor's Lounge clip? Be sure to click the subscribe button to our MD Coaches YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate suggestions for future show topics. Let us know what you're thinking in the comments below. And finally, special thanks to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music for the show.